George Cooper Sr.'s death remains one of the most heartbreaking moments of young Sheldon. Though fans already knew what was coming for the character considering the Big Bang Theory's lore, the moment was able to make the audience cry as everyone felt connected to Sheldon's father after years of character development. George died of a heart attack in Young Sheldon Season 7. When the final season premiered in February 2024, actor Lance Barber, who portrayed the character for 7 years, sat for an interview with TV Insider, where he revealed he was already prepared for his character's tragic fate. In his interview, Lance Barber highlighted how George Cooper Sr. suffered a heart attack in Young Sheldon Season 1 as well. However, at the time, he knew that the character would survive as the Big Bang Theory had established that Sheldon's father died when the latter was 14 years old. The plot finally arrived in the 12th episode of the final season, when Coach Wilkins and Principal Peterson reached the Coopers' home and told them about George having passed away from a massive heart attack. The penultimate episode of the series then showcased the aftermath of the death, depicting how the family members dealt with the grief, marking one of the most emotional episodes in the sitcom. Lance Barber debuted in the role of George Cooper Sr. in the first season of the CBS show. Though he did not quite understand Sheldon's genius at the beginning, the character earned praise for his relatability and the lengths he went to for his family. Barber also talked about how he got to portray various sides of his character as an older Sheldon narrates his life's events. Young Sheldon aired 7 seasons on CBS from 2017 to 2024. The show marked the first spin-off of The Big Bang Theory and paved the way for its sequel series, Georgie and Mandy's First Marriage. Apart from Barber, the show starred Ian Armitage as Sheldon, Zoe Perry as Mary Cooper, Montana Jordan as Georgie Cooper Jr., Annie Potts as Connie Tucker, Reagan Revord as Melissa Missy Cooper, Emily Osment as Mandy, Wyatt McClure as Billy Sparks, and Matt Hobby as Pastor Jeff Difford. For more interesting updates about Young Sheldon, keep following Soap Central. It's a moment fans of Young Sheldon always knew was coming, but that never made it any easier. As Young Sheldon draws closer to its final episodes, emotions are running high both on-screen and behind the scenes. At the center of this emotional storm is Lance Barber, who has brought George Cooper Sr. to life for 7 seasons. And now, as the series prepares to say goodbye not just to the show, but to one of its most important and beloved characters, Barber is finally opening up about how it feels to say farewell to George Sr., a father, husband, coach, and the quiet heart of the Cooper family. In an exclusive interview, Barber didn't hold back. He admitted that while he knew George's fate was sealed from the moment he signed onto the show, the reality of filming those final scenes hit him in a way he wasn't expecting. "I thought I was emotionally prepared," he said softly, pausing to collect his thoughts. "I'd told myself for years that this was always part of the story, but when the scripts came in and we saw how it was all going to play out, it just hit differently." Unlike many shocking TV deaths that come out of nowhere, George Sr.'s fate has always been hanging in the air like a heavy cloud. Fans of The Big Bang Theory, the show that birthed Young Sheldon, already knew that Sheldon Cooper's father dies when he's just 14. The tragic memory has been referenced numerous times by adult Sheldon, often layered in dry humor, but always tinged with sadness. And yet, Young Sheldon offered something The Big Bang Theory never did: a chance to truly know George Sr., not through Sheldon's biased recollections, but through his real-life struggles, sacrifices, and love for his family. Lance Barber's portrayal turned George from a flat character into a 3-dimensional man, one who was flawed, often misunderstood, but undeniably human. "When we first started, I knew people had preconceived notions about George," Barber recalled. "They were expecting some deadbeat dad who drank too much and didn't care. But that's not who he is. He's a man doing his best, and it's been such an honor to show that." When the cast gathered to film George Sr.'s final scenes, there was a noticeable shift in energy on set. The laughter was a little quieter. The camaraderie was still there, but it was tinged with melancholy. Barber said he felt a weight in his chest each day, knowing what was coming and trying to keep himself grounded for the sake of the story. "It's strange," he admitted. "You go to work every day with these people who have become like family, and suddenly you're asked to walk into a scene where that family breaks apart. It's not just acting anymore, it's personal. One scene in particular stood out to Barbara, a moment between George and Mary, played by Zoe Perry, where the two share an unexpectedly tender exchange before the narrative shifts toward tragedy. Barbara said that moment brought him to tears even during rehearsals. "There's a purity to that scene," he said. "It wasn't dramatic or flashy. It was just two people, a husband and wife, holding on to a quiet moment. And knowing it was probably their last, well, it broke me." What makes George Sr.'s exit all the more emotional is the legacy he leaves behind, not just within the story, but within the cast and crew who worked alongside Barbara for years. "Lance is one of the most generous actors I've ever worked with," said Zoe Perry in a separate interview. "Watching him say goodbye to this character, knowing how much heart he poured into it, it was incredibly emotional for all of us." Even Ian Armitage, who plays young Sheldon, couldn't hold back his admiration. "Mr. Lance taught me so much about storytelling, about presence, about listening," the teenage actor shared. "It's been an honor to work with him. I'll miss George Sr. so much, but I'll miss Lance on set even more." Barbara, for his part, says the feeling is mutual. "I've been so lucky to be part of this ensemble," he said. "And George Sr., he'll always have a place in my heart. I think he'll have a place in a lot of hearts." Producers have hinted that George Sr.'s death will be handled with care, respecting both the emotional weight of the moment and the character's journey. The show won't sensationalize it. There won't be any dramatic twists or out-of-nowhere shockers. Instead, it will be a quiet, heartbreaking, and very human moment, one that feels true to George and true to the tone young Sheldon has carefully built over the years. "It's about honoring him," Barbara said, "and not just who he was as a character, but who he was to Sheldon, to Mary, to Georgie, Missy, and even Mimo. He mattered. He shaped them." Barbara also shared that the writers gave him space to offer input on how George's final moments would unfold. "They were incredibly respectful," he said. "They knew how important this was to me and to the fans. So we talked a lot about tone, about emotion. It was a true collaboration." As the series prepares to wrap, Barbara admits it's been hard to let go, not just of the show, but of the man he spent 7 years embodying. "I've lived with George Sr. for a long time," he said, "and saying goodbye to him, it's like saying goodbye to a part of myself." Still, Barbara remains grateful for the journey. "I knew this day would come," he said, "and I do feel emotionally prepared. But that doesn't mean it hurts any less. What I hope is that when fans watch it, they feel the love we all put into this, that they remember George Sr. not for how he died, but for how he lived." And perhaps that's the most fitting tribute of all to a character who started as a shadow in Sheldon's past, but ended as a deeply loved father in the hearts of millions. "He was real," Barbara said one last time, his voice thick with emotion, "and he mattered."